Like, I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died.
Coincidence is just a coincidence. 2 coincidences are a clue, and 3 coincidences are proof. So let's talk about the coincidences in the case of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, found dead in the trunk of singer David's abandoned Tesla. Her mother confirms that she had a boyfriend named David. David wrote an unreleased song titled Celeste. Both David and Celeste have a tattoo, same exact one, of the word shh on their right index fingers. David lived in Los Angeles. There is a photo of him less than a half a mile from the home that Celeste ran away from. And in his music video for his song One More Dance, which was released just in February, David is dragging a body and hiding it in a trunk. So are all those coincidences a proof, as Agatha Christie calls it? Well, TMZ is reporting that friends of David's have confirmed to them that David and Celeste were in fact in a romantic relationship. And these friends also say to TMZ that they thought that she was 19. Nope. How about 14? She was 14 when she was...
New bombshell evidence from the feds just confirmed that D4vd didn't unalive his girlfriend. He was actually framed. But the twist doesn't stop there. Investigators revealed that David's Tesla had been stolen days before it was ever abandoned, and the person they claim took it will leave you speechless. The discovery and the chaos that followed flipped the music world upside down. News broke that sent shockwaves through fans and the entire industry, forever changing the trajectory of rising indie pop star D4vd's career. What started off as a normal vehicle inspection at a Hollywood tow yard on September 8, 2025, turned into one of the most disturbing and publicized cases in recent history. The scene was nightmarish. Inside the front trunk of a 2023 Tesla Model 3 registered to 20-year-old David Anthony Burke, known to millions as D4vd, police found the severely decomposed remains of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, wrapped in plastic. The gruesome discovery immediately set off alarms and raised haunting questions that painted David as the prime suspect in what looked like a horrific crime. But something about it didn't add up. The Tesla had been sitting abandoned for nearly 3 weeks in the Hollywood Hills, parked on Bluebird Avenue near Doheny Drive, completely in the open. Neighbors even reported a disgusting sewage-like stench seeping from the car for days. How could a vehicle in plain sight, belonging to one of the hottest rising stars in music, go untouched for so long? Something about this setup felt way too deliberate. The body, which was already in an advanced stage of decay, was believed to have been trapped inside that trunk for weeks, maybe even months, before tow yard workers made the horrifying discovery while tracking down the source of an unbearable stench. The scene was straight out of a nightmare. For anyone unfamiliar with D4vd's meteoric come-up, his story had been nothing short of legendary until that moment. Born and raised in Houston, he exploded onto the scene in 2022 after TikTok sent his track, Romantic Homicide, viral. An emotional gut punch that captured hearts around the world. The haunting song racked up over 1.5 billion streams on Spotify alone, turning a teenager with a phone into one of the most talked about new artists on the planet. His sound, this hypnotic blend of indie R&B and alternative pop, hit deep with Gen Z fans. They saw themselves in his music, in the heartbreak, in the raw emotions he poured into every lyric. At just 17, D4vd had been recording songs on his iPhone, tucked away in his sister's closet, using nothing but Apple earbuds as a mic. From that tiny space, he created tracks powerful enough to land him a major deal with Interscope Records and launch him into a full-blown world tour. But all that success came crashing down the moment Celeste's body was found in his Tesla. Overnight, D4vd went from global star to homicide suspect. Every headline, every post, every live stream picked apart his life and music. The connection between the young artist and the teenage girl became the center of a media storm that spiraled out of control as investigators and internet sleuths dug deeper, searching for the truth behind this chilling discovery. Investigators started piecing together what looked like a chilling puzzle, one built on layers of circumstantial evidence that tied D4vd and Celeste together in ways that went way beyond coincidence. What once seemed like a tragic mix-up was starting to feel like something far darker.
Y'all, we got some updates in the Celeste David Tesla situation, and I know a lot of people have been wanting to know a couple things. What was her cause of demise? And of course, was she ever pregnant before she passed away? Well, we got some updates on at least one of those things, okay? Apparently, some information has been released revolving around her death certificate. Now, of course, they cannot confirm her cause of demise yet. They're still waiting on toxicology reports and all that stuff from the medical examiner and all that.
Celeste Rivas Hernandez had vanished from her home in Lake Elsinore, California on April 5th, 2024, when she was just 13 years old. Her disappearance broke her family's hearts. They described her as a bright, sweet first-generation American whose parents had immigrated from El Salvador. A 7th grader at Lakeland Village School, Celeste was the kind of kid everyone in the neighborhood recognized, always smiling, always stopping by the corner store for candy, soda, and her favorite chips, Takis. But behind that innocent image, something wasn't right. Deputies from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department had been called to her home several times before she vanished for good. Reports showed Celeste had run away from home not once, but 3 times, each time coming back, only to disappear again. The first time was on Valentine's Day 2024, then again on March 19th, and finally in early April, just days before she was gone for good. What made things even messier were the clues that surfaced right after investigators confirmed the body found in the Tesla was hers. Suddenly, disturbing connections began to emerge between D4vd and Celeste, connections that couldn't be brushed off as random. The evidence stacking up in those first few days painted a picture that was shocking, confusing, and full of secrets no one saw coming. Investigators dropped a shocking detail. D4vd and Celeste had matching tattoos on their right index fingers. The design wasn't completely one of a kind, but it was distinct enough to raise serious questions about what kind of connection they really had. Then came the jaw-dropping moment when Celeste's mother told TMZ that her daughter had been dating someone named David. That single revelation sent shockwaves across social media and instantly threw the young star into the middle of a scandal that wouldn't quit. Things got even crazier when old photos and videos resurfaced online, allegedly showing D4vd and Celeste together. Screenshots from Discord chats dating back to 2022 began circulating, showing messages that fueled suspicions. And if the timestamps were real, that would have made Celeste only around 12 years old at the time. Fans and critics alike started demanding answers about whether this was just a coincidence or something far more disturbing. Then, another twist hit the internet like wildfire. An unreleased demo titled Celeste, supposedly recorded in December 2023, started making the rounds online. The lyrics, cryptic and emotional, had people convinced it was written about her. Even though authorities couldn't confirm if the song was legit or connected to the case, that didn't stop social media from losing its mind. X, formerly Twitter, turned into a battle zone overnight. Users picked apart every lyric, every post, every old clip of D4vd they could find. Some pointed back to his breakout hit, Romantic Homicide, claiming its dark themes and imagery suddenly felt too real, like a warning no one had noticed until it was too late. The whole internet was in chaos, and everyone wanted to know what was really going on between D4vd and Celeste. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing when people started revisiting D4vd's February 2024 music video for One More Dance. The video showed a lifeless body being dragged and stuffed into a car trunk, imagery that suddenly felt chillingly real after what had just been found in his Tesla.
And on their phone.
And this is not a Texas.
Yeah, it's an out-of-state number. Someone's messing with us.
Were David's parents victims of a swatting incident as police investigate the discovery of a dead body in a car registered to the singer's name? Is he being targeted? Is he being framed?
What once looked like art now seemed like a confession in plain sight. Then came the strange timing. D4vd was out on tour when Celeste's body was discovered. He performed in Minneapolis on September 9th, 2025, just one day after the gruesome discovery. At first, he kept performing like nothing happened, but by September 17th, he abruptly canceled his Seattle show, and within hours, the rest of his entire North American and European tour was called off. Something clearly shifted behind the scenes. Even more suspicious, D4vd's manager, Josh Marshall, who had leased the Hollywood Hills home where the artist was staying, suddenly terminated the lease and cleared out every trace of D4vd's belongings just days after police raided the property. By September 17th, it was like D4vd's world collapsed overnight. Major brands that once couldn't get enough of him, like Crocs and Hollister, scrubbed his face from their campaigns. Collaborations were paused, promo shots deleted, and his upcoming deluxe album under Interscope Records was quietly postponed. The internet was ruthless. Comment sections exploded with people claiming he was guilty, with others calling it a massive setup. The court of public opinion wasn't waiting for facts. It had already delivered a verdict. Everyone was convinced they were watching a real-life mystery play out in slow motion. Yet despite all the suspicious details, D4vd was never officially named a suspect. Through his team, he claimed he was fully cooperating with investigators, though he refused to make any public statements himself. That silence drove people crazy. Some said it was guilt, others called it a smart legal move. But one thing was clear, this was no small situation. The moment his high-powered attorney Blair Burke stepped in, it was obvious D4vd was preparing for a fight far bigger than music. The kind of fight that could decide his freedom or end his career forever. As the investigation moved forward and new evidence surfaced, the story began to twist in a shocking new direction. Suddenly, it wasn't so clear that D4vd was the villain in this tragedy. Some investigators started suspecting he might have been set up. What if the whole thing was a cold, calculated plan to frame a young superstar for a crime he didn't commit? Once the LAPD's robbery-homicide division started digging deeper, the case that once looked so simple began to fall apart piece by piece. What had seemed like an open and shut situation was now showing cracks, big ones. Detectives began uncovering inconsistencies that didn't match the original timeline, suggesting there was way more going on behind.
Here's my thought on how this possibly is connected, and I'm curious your opinion on it. So I think it is bizarre that Celeste's body was in a car registered to David out on a public street in LA. And the reports indicate that that car was there for weeks, that it got a ticket, that it was towed, that it was impounded. Her body was decomposed. So if we assume her body was in that car for quite some time, we don't know exactly when it was deposited, but assuming it was in that car for as long as that car was parked there, it does make me think, and we've seen theories online about this, is it more likely that someone deliberately, they were purposeful to put that body in there to make sure it was found, to make sure it was connected to David, as opposed to the idea that the body was out there and it was found before the perpetrator had time to dispose of it?
Then came a major turning point, an official LAPD statement that shifted everything. They emphasized that the cause and manner of Celeste's passing were still undetermined, pending toxicology results and deeper forensic analysis. That one detail turned out to be a game changer. It meant the most crucial piece of the puzzle, the how and why, was still missing. LAPD Captain Scott M. Williams addressed the media with a statement that would later sound downright prophetic. "We know for sure that Celeste Rivas Hernandez died, and someone placed her body in the front trunk area of David Burke's Tesla. The vehicle had been parked at the location from which it was towed for several weeks. So Ms. Rivas Hernandez may have been deceased for several weeks before the discovery of her body. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner has not yet determined the cause or manner of Ms. Rivas Hernandez's passing. As such, it remains unclear whether there is any criminal culpability beyond the concealment of her body." That statement changed everything. It cracked open the idea that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a homicide at all, or at least not one committed by D4vd. Until the toxicology results dropped, police couldn't even label it a homicide. For the first time since this nightmare began, people started asking a different question. What if D4vd wasn't hiding guilt, but running from a setup? This revelation flipped the entire case on its head. Suddenly, people started asking the questions nobody dared to ask before. What if Celeste's passing wasn't a homicide at all? What if it was an accident? Or worse, what if someone deliberately put her body in D4vd's Tesla just to destroy his life? That idea changed everything. Former CSI analyst and forensic scientist Dr. Amy Santoro, PhD, stepped into the conversation with some major insight that could rewrite the whole story. Speaking publicly in early October 2025, Dr. Santoro revealed that early autopsy findings showed no visible signs of trauma on Celeste's body. That meant no gunshot wounds, no stab marks, no strangulation, no blunt force injuries, nothing. Instead, investigators were starting to look into another possibility. that Celeste's passing might have been the result of an overdose, not an act of violence. That detail was absolutely explosive. If Celeste hadn't been physically harmed, then the entire public narrative that painted D4vd as some kind of slayer started crumbling fast. It opened a completely new path for investigators, a path that pointed to tragedy, not homicide. Because if this really was an accidental overdose, then everything the media and the internet had screamed for months might have been wrong. Dr. Santoro broke it down clearly. If toxicology results confirmed that Celeste died from illicit substances, D4vd likely wouldn't face any unaliving charges at all.
Gotta get your take on this. So 15-year-old Damian Hernandez spoke exclusively to TMZ and claimed that he dated Celeste in middle school when she was in the 7th grade, he was in the 8th grade. He claimed she was, quote, looking for something serious, that she was having problems at home, particularly with her mother, who he claimed didn't treat Celeste right, that this made Celeste unhappy, that she wanted to run away.
The focus would instantly shift to a different, darker question. Who put her body in that Tesla and why? Was it a panicked cover-up or a setup meant to ruin him completely? Whatever the answer was, one thing became clear. The story the world thought it knew about D4vd was starting to fall apart right in front of their eyes. That single detail, the difference between causing an ending and concealing one, became the legal turning point in this entire case. Criminal defense attorney Alexandra Kazarian went on News Nation to break it down, and her words hit like a lightning bolt. There is no evidence against this man for any crime, she said firmly. It was the clearest defense anyone had made for D4vd yet. Kazarian didn't hold back. She pointed out that the so-called evidence against D4vd was all circumstantial. Matching tattoos, old photos, alleged Discord messages, none of it proved he committed a crime. She explained that unless investigators could connect D4vd directly to the act itself with hard forensic proof, prosecutors had nothing. Her message was clear. Suspicion isn't the same as guilt, and the LAPD's careful handling of the case showed they understood that distinction. Then came another bombshell. The timeline started to help D4vd instead of hurt him. As detectives cross-checked dates and travel logs, it became clear that D4vd had been out on tour across North America during the very period the Tesla sat abandoned in the Hollywood Hills. Fans' social media posts, ticket scans, and live videos placed him hundreds, even thousands, of miles away during key moments in the investigation. If Celeste's body had been placed in that car while it was parked on Bluebird Avenue, as investigators now believed, then D4vd physically couldn't have done it. He was performing in entirely different cities while the Tesla sat untouched in Los Angeles. That detail alone started to unravel the entire Slayer narrative. And then came the most overlooked piece of all, the Tesla itself. Reports revealed that it had gone missing nearly a week before it was towed. Some sources even claimed it had been straight up stolen. If that turned out to be true, it would explain everything. The car's strange location, the timing, and how a body ended up inside without D4vd's knowledge. What once looked like a damning chain of evidence was now transforming into something far more sinister. A setup so elaborate that even detectives were forced to take a step back and rethink everything they thought they knew about the case. The question that haunted everyone now was simple. How did Celeste's body end up in D4vd's Tesla if he wasn't involved? Who had access to that car? And more importantly, who had a reason to plant a body there and frame one of music's biggest rising stars? Things took an even darker turn when a terrifying incident hit close to home.
Frankly, that's the smartest thing for him to do is keep his mouth shut, especially if he's involved in this. His crisis management people or consultants are probably telling him right now is not the time to make a statement because anything he say will be used against him. So I think right now, if he is involved, I think the next time we hear from him is because he's been either arrested or there's been some sort of public spectacle of him being involved with law enforcement.
And to be clear, he has not been implicated in any crime.
On September 18, 2025, just days after Celeste's body was officially identified, police stormed D4vd's parents' house in Hempstead, Texas. They had received a chilling 911 call claiming there had been a shooting and someone was inside. Officers showed up with guns drawn, only to discover the entire thing was fake, a swatting attack. It was a deliberate attempt to scare, humiliate, or possibly provoke a fatal confrontation. Retired FBI agent Colin L. Schmidt later called the timing of the swatting highly suspicious. suggesting it could be directly connected to whoever was trying to frame or threaten D4vd. It was as if someone wanted to keep the young artist under pressure, watching him unravel in real time. Meanwhile, the spotlight started to shift toward D4vd's own manager, Josh Marshall, the same man who had leased the Hollywood Hills house where D4vd had been staying before everything fell apart. Rumors began to swirl that Marshall might have known more than he was admitting, especially after he abruptly ended the lease and cleared the property right after the police raid. But when those whispers grew too loud, Marshall broke his silence with a firm statement. This video is false and the person is misinformed. I had zero knowledge of anything, and I don't live in California. This is the only time I'll speak on this matter for now. He stressed that he worked remotely, lived in another state with his family, and barely interacted with D4vd day to day. Still, that explanation didn't stop people from questioning how everything had gone so wrong so fast. But then, the focus shifted again, this time back to Celeste. Investigators started digging deeper into her past, and what they found painted a heartbreaking and complicated picture. She had a well-documented history of running away from home. Police records showed that deputies had responded to her family's home 11 times between February 2024 and April 2025 for reports listed under minor crimes, suspicious activity, and missing juvenile. Her ex-boyfriend even told detectives that Celeste came from what he described as a troubled home. The deeper investigators went, the murkier everything became. Each new piece of information raised the same chilling thought. Maybe this wasn't a mystery at all. Maybe it was a tragedy twisted into a setup, one that used both Celeste and D4d as pawns in something much bigger. Investigators soon started realizing that Celeste's repeated disappearances might have had far more to do with trouble at home than anything tied to D4vd. Her story was beginning to look less like a celebrity scandal and more like a long, painful pattern of instability that no one had truly understood until now. Then came the discovery that changed the entire timeline. A surveillance clip from September 8, 2024, exactly 1 year before her body was found.
The other thing is that they said, the question that everybody's been wanting to know, was she or was she ever pregnant? She never has been pregnant, or at least she was never pregnant in the past year. Also, she was never pregnant when she lost her life. So that theory and that speculation can be thrown right off the table. That can go bye-bye now. And I know
the footage showed Celeste alive and walking through her family's backyard, completely healthy and unharmed. That single video shattered the old timeline and raised a huge question. If she was still alive months after being reported missing in April 2024, when did she actually die? The coroner's analysis later revealed that the state of decomposition was consistent with a passing only a few weeks before her body was found in September 2025. That meant she likely died sometime during the summer of 2025, a period when D4vd was touring nonstop and documented to be nowhere near Los Angeles. This blew open the case. If D4vd had really been the one to place her body in his Tesla, why would he leave his own car, registered in his name, abandoned on a public street in the Hollywood Hills for weeks? Why wouldn't he try to hide it somewhere remote, or at least make sure it didn't get towed and inspected? None of it made sense. Former FBI agent Colin L. Schmidt didn't hold back when he analyzed those same inconsistencies. He pointed out that everything about the car's discovery looked more like someone had set D4vd up than like something D4vd himself would have done to cover up a homicide. He explained that Teslas aren't just cars, they're rolling surveillance systems packed with cameras, microphones, GPS tracking, and digital logs that capture everything. If D4vd had actually used his Tesla to move or hide a body, the evidence would have been impossible to erase. The vehicle's data logs would have shown exactly when the trunk opened, where it traveled, and even captured sounds or movement inside the cabin. Yet none of that data linked back to him. The deeper investigators dug, the clearer it became. This whole thing didn't line up with guilt. It lined up with a setup. The fact that D4vd never ran, never hid, and never destroyed evidence said everything. He handed his phone over, cooperated fully with the police, and stayed exactly where he was while the world tore him apart online. That kind of calm under that kind of pressure didn't look like guilt. It looked like innocence. Either that, or it would have been the boldest, dumbest gamble imaginable, and investigators knew it. Another rumor that had fueled chaos online was finally shut down. Celeste had never been pregnant. That one finding instantly destroyed one of the wildest and most damaging theories floating around social media, removing a supposed motive people had unfairly pinned on D4vd since day one. As the investigation pushed into its second and third months, the LAPD refused to buckle under the weight of the media circus. They stayed methodical, quiet, and cautious. Ignoring the pressure to arrest or exonerate him publicly, their official stance was clear. They were searching for the truth and real justice for Celeste Rivas Hernandez and her family, not chasing headlines. Behind the scenes, detectives were working a lot harder than anyone realized. While social media was drowning in conspiracy theories, they were quietly following the data, and that's where the breakthrough finally came. Tesla's built-in camera network and black box-style data logs gave investigators a complete record of every movement, every unlock, every trunk open, and every GPS ping.
It also adds more pieces of the puzzle. He can delete it, but law enforcement's going to get it. So they'll send out subpoenas or search warrants to all those entities where he has a online presence, and they're going to get all those posts because that's going to lead to also understanding the timeline to frankly see if he either has culpability in this or he had knowledge of what happened to her before the body was or the person was placed in that car.
It was like having a digital eyewitness. Though police didn't release all the specifics, sources close to the investigation said the evidence didn't line up with D4vd ever touching that vehicle during the critical time window when Celeste's body was placed inside. The Tesla's access logs, GPS data, and video feeds all pointed towards someone else being behind the wheel. The system even showed that the car had been moved without D4vd's authorization, proof that someone had taken it before it was ever found abandoned in the Hollywood Hills. And that's when the truth started coming into focus. Investigators confirmed what D4vd's team had been quietly hinting at for months. The Tesla had been stolen roughly a week before it was towed. His legal team had stayed quiet on the topic at first, likely on the advice of counsel. But once that evidence surfaced, it was undeniable. The car wasn't in his possession when the crime happened. Piece by piece, the story the world thought it knew was falling apart. The data didn't show a slayer. It showed a setup. And for the first time since this nightmare began, it looked like D4vd was finally being cleared of the crime that nearly destroyed his entire life. That discovery finally gave investigators a real explanation for how Celeste's body could have ended up inside D4vd's Tesla without his knowledge or involvement. It suddenly made sense. Someone who either had access to the vehicle or flat out stole, it might have used it as a quick and convenient dump spot. Whether that person was trying to frame D4vd or just didn't care about what happened to the car's owner, the result was the same. His life got turned upside down for something he didn't do. The big mystery now became who had access to that Tesla and who had placed Celeste's body there. That question kept investigators digging. But as more evidence came in, it became increasingly clear that D4vd himself had no direct involvement. LAPD insiders began quietly briefing reporters, saying that while D4vd was still technically a person of interest because of his connection to Celeste in the car, there was no forensic or digital evidence proving he caused her passing, or even touched the vehicle when her body was placed inside. Detectives also revisited the Hollywood Hills home where D4vd had been staying, turning their focus on his associates and anyone who might have had access to his Tesla while it was parked there. At first, his manager Josh Marshall's actions, terminating the lease and quickly clearing out the property after the raid, looked extremely suspicious. The internet ran wild with theories that he was hiding something. But as the truth started to surface, that theory crumbled too. It turned out Marshall's decision to pull D4vd out of that house wasn't shady at all. It was strategic. Sources revealed that both Marshall and D4vd had been advised by their legal team to vacate the property immediately as a standard safety move during an active criminal investigation. It wasn't about guilt, it was about protection. What the public had once seen as a guilty scramble now looked like smart legal defense. The so-called hasty escape from the Hollywood Hills home wasn't part of a cover-up. It was just the work of experienced attorneys doing exactly what they were supposed to do: keep their clients safe, quiet, and out of harm's way, while the truth slowly came to light. the swatting incident at D4vd's family home suddenly took on a whole new meaning. Investigators began to seriously consider the possibility that someone was actively targeting him, trying to push the narrative that he was guilty, and maybe even plant more false evidence to make it stick. While they couldn't officially prove that the swatting and Celeste's passing were directly linked, the timing, just days after her identification, was way too suspicious to ignore. It felt like someone was determined to keep D4vd under fire no matter what the truth was. As the investigation pushed through October and into early November 2025, multiple major news outlets finally started reporting what fans had been hoping to hear. LAPD had essentially cleared D4vd as a homicide suspect. He was still technically listed as a person of interest, but that detail mattered. It meant investigators wanted his help and insight, not his arrest. They didn't believe he caused Celeste's passing. When that news broke, the public didn't know how to react. Some people who had jumped to conclusions early on were now backtracking, scrambling to apologize for what they'd said online. Others doubled down, refusing to admit they might have been wrong. Social media turned into a battlefield of conflicting opinions, some shouting vindication, others still convinced that D4vd had to be involved somehow. The same crowd that once built him up had nearly destroyed him, and now they didn't know how to face what they'd done. The investigation wasn't over, but the story had changed. The once open and shut case against D4vd was now a warning about how fast the internet can turn on someone, and how slow it is to make things right. With no solid evidence tying him to the crime, the LAPD's cautious stance spoke louder than any tweet or headline. Thank you for watching. What do you think really happened? Was D4vd the victim of a setup, or is there still more to the story we don't know yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dive breakdowns like this. See you on the next one.